We all have a teacher that we still think about as adults. What makes them stand out in your mind? Did they leave an impact on you? Or did the experiences you had in their classroom shape parts of who you are today? When I think about teachers who left an impact on myself, I think about my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Fisher. She was incredibly kind and cared deeply about all her students. She encouraged us to be courageous learners, and the values she taught in her classroom have stayed with me into adulthood. Not only was she someone who helped me gain confidence as a 5th grade learner, she also inspired me to become a teacher. I was actually able to return to her classroom to complete my student teaching and learn about the many ways she was able to create a rigorous yet joyful classroom experience. I remember thinking, as I showed up to my first day of student teaching, how can I be just like Mrs. Fisher for my future students? And how can I plan such fun and organized activities? I also thought about how all of my chit-chatting as a 5th grader may not have been the best idea. As a 5th grader, Mrs. Fisher helped me gain what we call today as a growth mindset. She would tell us to use perseverance and not give up if something was tough. The legacy she left behind in me was that learning is a lifelong process, and that once you find your passion, to run with it. One of my favorite experiences in Mrs. Fisher's classroom was dissecting owl pellets in science. I remember being so excited to learn all about owls, and who wouldn't be thrilled to dig into owl vomit? This type of hands-on exploration is a learning style I try to replicate as often as possible in my own classroom. Mrs. Fisher would also put on some of the best plays in our whole school, with beautiful backdrops and props that transformed our assembly hall into a completely different space. Our performance of Millennium Magic gave me the confidence as a 5th grader to stand up in front of a crowd and speak. I decided that as a teacher myself, I wanted to pass down that same passion and excitement for learning. I want my students to grow into compassionate adults with a positive mindset that learning never has to stop. I want them to look back on a joyous time where their experiences shaped a lifetime love of learning. And my defining question then became, what will my students remember about 4th grade when they're 40? It has inspired me to think about ways I can make my classroom a fun and joyous place, so that when they are adults, they're just as excited about learning as they were when they were in 4th grade. One of the main ways I've decided to leave a lasting legacy is through transforming my classroom into new themed spaces, just like Mrs. Fisher did for our performances. Who knows, maybe a student who experiences my grammar emergency room will think back on that day during their first day of medical school. During our nonfiction reading unit, we used the platform of extreme weather to dive into our learning. At the end of this unit, we celebrated our skills by reading other favorite extreme weather fiction books, such as Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and I transformed the classroom with giant food falling from the ceiling. Our class partners with the younger grades to develop role modeling skills. They bring the joy we experience in 4th grade to their buddies by surprising them with a Polar Express celebration. Seeing the pride they take by decorating the classroom and running a train track down the hallway is something they will never forget. And creating a classroom space that is flexible and gives students the opportunity for movement can seriously improve their focus on the task at hand. In my classroom, there are couches, comfortable chairs, yoga balls, and more. This gives them the ability to choose what feels most comfortable for their learning. Flexible seating, classroom transformations, and student connections are just pieces of the puzzle when you think about an entire school year. In order to leave a lasting impact on students, like Mrs. Fisher did for me, we need to think about how we can reach students as unique individuals. Every classroom has a wide range of learners with unique needs. It's unfortunate to see a student feel defeated or embarrassed by abilities that are out of their control. There are many small changes we can be making in our classrooms to support these learners and build their confidence. Christian Bauer, a Dutch graphic designer, created a font where the shape of letters can increase readability for students with dyslexia. I used this font to assess reading fluency for my students with this profile, and seeing that boost of confidence shows how one small change can make a huge impact. For some students, a long reading passage can feel stressful. I have used many assistive technology features that provide the simple accommodation of reading through text and directions. For older students, this takes the embarrassment out of needing a teacher to sit with you just to get the support you need. Many of these things are all inspired by Mrs. Fisher's legacy. Having fun while learning, meeting the needs of my diverse students, and creating a classroom space where students feel safe to try something challenging are all adaptations of the amazing things she has passed down to me as a teacher. And I am not the only one at San Domenico who has felt the impact of amazing teachers and staff members. Our middle school counselor, Christina, shared that her passion stems from the high school counselor she had and worked with at San Domenico. Now as an adult, she feels incredibly fortunate to work alongside her in the same profession. As educators, remember that the influence you have can positively shape the future leaders, business owners, and the next generation. For some students, you will live in their memory for a lifetime. What do you want them to remember when they're 40? Thank you.